We have a new speaker here who joined us at Token 2049. Can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about Mansa?
So I'm the CEO and the co-founder of Mansa. Essentially at Mansa, what we do is our mission is to transform the way that money moves. So historically, it's been very expensive to send money in and out of emerging markets. For example, it costs 10% to send money to Africa, 6% to Latin America, and 7% to Southeast Asia.
Exactly.
The reason why it's so expensive is because of the lack of correspondent banking in many of these regions. But with the advent of stablecoins, it has transformed everything. So what Mansa does is we work with the largest payment companies across B2B payments, virtual cards, remittance, and give them the infrastructure which enables them to settle transactions instantly using stablecoins. We have done right now $150 million in payments and 300 million in on-chain volume over the past 12 months in Africa, Latin America, and Southeast Asia.
You mentioned that you are trying to fix the bottlenecks, let's say, in global, transactions. So can you tell us how this will fix, between the payment dinosaurs out there, how you're working with them, or are you trying to derail them? What are you doing at Mansa?
That's a fantastic question. So in order to understand why stablecoins are so revolutionary, we must understand the dynamics and the context of emerging markets. Let's take Argentina and Nigeria, for example. Their local currencies have devalued against the dollar 300 and 500%. So if I'm a business in any of these markets and I hold the local currency, I'm losing money.
Right.
So stablecoins have been used as a hedge against inflation and an ability to acquire dollars. Because a lot of these countries, the reason why inflation is so high is because there is not the availability of fiat dollars. So if I'm a business and I need to pay for my goods in dollars, if I cannot get dollars, then I'm essentially screwed. So a lot of them work with our clients to be able to settle their transactions overseas. And we provide these payment companies with the necessary stablecoins so they can instantly settle their transactions. Number two is as well that sending money to these countries can take a long time because, again, of the lack of dollars. But with stablecoins, it becomes borderless and it's instant. So we provide that instantaneous infrastructure for payment companies to seamlessly move the funds in and out of emerging markets. All our customers that we've worked with have increased their revenue by 30% and their volume by 40% because they're now able to serve more customers much faster, offering a seamless user experience.
Okay. I was just going through your About Us page, just listening. So your homepage describes a liquidity product that unlocks instantaneous funding, reducing pre-funding requirements, and ensuring funds are always, there. Can you walk us through how it works under the hood? And does Mansa provide credit lines? Does it match FX orders? Simply facilitate stablecoin swaps?
That's a great question. So essentially, what pre-funding means is that if I'm an international payment company, if I want to, let's say, send money, because we're in Singapore, let's say between Singapore to Malaysia, for example, I, as a payment company, must keep money in Malaysia. So whenever my customers send Singaporean dollars, it's taken from the Malaysian ringgit that's already there. Right? So SWIFT is not a transfer of money, but it's a messaging system. Money doesn't actually move. The Singaporean dollars always stays here, and the Malaysian dollars the Malaysian ringgit is taken from there, right? If I, as Western Union, only have 50,000 Malaysian ringgit, on the day I can only send up to 50,000. But let's say I have a $100,000 order, Mansa will provide the additional $50,000 in stablecoins. We will pre-fund it for you, and then the payment company pays us back in 24, 48, or 72 hours. So we provide a credit line and a settlement network based on the orders that the payment companies has. So as a payment company, you don't need to keep your balance sheet. You don't need to tie up your funds. And this is the reason why Western Union is so dominant, because it has the scale and it has hundreds of billions of dollars to be in all these places. And this is how they have monopolized the market and kept the fees so high. So now we enable any payment company globally to settle the transaction instantly without having a presence or without having funds in that specific order.
Oh, I see. Also, Mansa says you work with B2B payment providers, virtual card processors, I think remittance companies, offering solutions like instant payouts, as you said, automated FX, and stablecoin infrastructure. Which clients client segment has shown the fastest adoption so far, and what are the most common use cases?
The most common use case for us has been B2B payments. We have done, I think, from the 150 million in payments, 70 million has been B2B payments, mainly because businesses are the ones that have the highest needs. Also because if you think about it, in many of these emerging markets, they are import-heavy economies. And as an import-heavy economy, you need to pay your goods in the global reserve currency, which is the dollars. So if you're not able to settle dollars, you can't pay for your goods. And if there's a limited fiat dollar available, what you need to come? You need to go on chain. And in order to have the necessary on chain dollars, you come to Mansa and we will settle the transaction on your behalf.
I think one of your co-founder recently spoke at Money 2020. Right?
She's a superstar.
Noted that roughly 4 trillion sits locked in pre-funded accounts, and stablecoin can provide instantaneous cross-border payments. Where exactly does the 4 trillion figure come from, and how does Mansa's model free up the capital?
That's an interesting question. So the 4 trillion comes from different, right? It comes from your large financial institutions like your JP Morgans, your other banks, your remittance companies, your B2B companies. This is all their own money that they have locked up, right? So our proposal to payment companies is that don't lock up your funds, use Mansa funds instead, save fees for your customers, and have a more instantaneous payment experience, because we have a large balance sheet ourselves, which we can use to settle on behalf of our customers.
He also said, according to an article I read, he argued that regulation isn't a dirty word, but rather provides guidance, governance, and boundaries, which are essential for broader adoption. So which regulatory frameworks or licenses have been the most enabling for Mansa so far, and where do you see the biggest gaps?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think, so at Mansa, we always operate in the spirit of regulatory clarity. And that's what my co-founder always hampers down on me. And I think, the most important thing is to have a clear regulatory framework. And I think the Genius Act has established that. And you have a lot of regulators as well now that have, embraced stablecoins. Currently, right now, we are mainly BVI predominantly, but we are getting licenses in Switzerland. We're getting licenses in Canada and potentially in the Middle East as well.
A little bit of, I think there was a report from Meriblock that said that sources liquidity from DeFi pools and investment funds, hosts its liquidity on Ethereum-based network, and allows collateral for loans. So which DeFi protocol are you using at Mansa, and how do you manage the smart contract risks, and do you plan to diversify across different chains? So the question is, what kinds of collateral do clients post stablecoin only or tokenized RWA such as T-bills?
That's an interesting question. So when we first started, we adopted a aggregator model, but the problem is that one of the main drawbacks with using DeFi is that DeFi is very short term.
Yeah.
And when I'm dealing with international payment companies, they need to be able to rely on me for the foreseeable future. Exactly. So we recently secured a $100 million credit line from a large institutional debt fund for the next 30 months. So which is essentially the next 3 years. So we've actually shifted away from DeFi liquidity to more institutional private credit liquidity. So this $100 million will enable us to do $10.8 billion in volume over the next 3 years. So we're scaling very, very aggressively, and this means that we can serve more customers, and our customers can rely on us for always on liquidity.
So other cross-border payment platforms like Yellow Card, Accrue also leverages stablecoins. So what differentiates Mansa from these players, and looking ahead, as you said, 3 years to 2030, say, do you anticipate competing against sort of other types of rails, working alongside them? So what would success look like for Mansa, making them, refunding obsolete, or perhaps seeing on-chain settlement embraced by regulators and banks alike?
For sure, that's an amazing question. So these are actually two companies that could be our potential customers. So Mansa doesn't compete against anybody, but Mansa's infrastructure is rather an enabler. So Yellow Card is a large B2B payment company that facilitates money transfer between Africa and the rest of the world. Yellow Card needs pre-funding. Accrue also needs pre-funding. So everybody that wants to move funds in and out of emerging markets or even developed market requires pre-funding. funding. So Mansa is trying to build that infrastructure. So we're trying to be the enablement layer. We don't really compete against anybody, but we're trying to help them grow. As mentioned, most of the customers have grown their revenues by 30% and their volume by another 40%. And what we're also like trying to do is develop more products that can leverage their rails and that can leverage their volumes, right? So success to me looks like the seamless movement of funds in and out of like emerging markets with the biggest and best companies using our rails and us leveraging the rails and pushing volume to them, right? It's each one help one. That's our mindset.
That's good. Just to wrap up the interview, would you have some comments we can expect from you guys in the next few months or even during this event for our Korean audience looking at
Yeah,
this?
first of all, I'd like to say annyeonghaseyo to like all the Korean audience there. I think Korea is a fantastic market. I was there last year, like for the first time. I think there's so much potential for stablecoins in Korea. And I would like to say that, like at Mansa, we're scaling incredibly quickly. We expect to have a presence soon in Korea as well and the rest of Asia.